Now let's look at using frameworks to help develop and build the quality of the coaching conversation. I will explain what I mean. This section is going to be about how to use and how to build frameworks and why they're important. And then in a couple of other sections, I'm going to share with you frameworks that I actually use. Frameworks help the coach, but they also help the client. I will explain a little bit more. How? Well, they help to uncover blind spots, things that neither of you might be aware of or thinking about. Frameworks help you to build new understanding. They give a focus. They provide a process, a start, a middle, and an end point so that you are moving the conversation in a direction. And they also suggest great questions for a coach to ask. Let me give you a couple of examples. In the field of coaching, there's a framework called GROW or T-GROW, which is used to guide a coaching conversation. I am going to cover that in one of the sections that's coming up here. But right now, it is a guide to help you make sure that the client has a topic. There is something that they want to talk about, that their goals are clear, that you've understood the reality of the current situation. You generate new options and ideas about the way forward, and that there is a nail down in terms of making a decision about which way to go. Simple framework. If you don't have something like that in mind, then it's very easy for the conversation to simply drift. Another one I use is I have a 6-step problem-solving process where we start with really understanding the problem, if it's a problem we're talking about, and dig deeper into understanding what's causing that problem. Again, we focus on the goals. What's the ideal outcome from solving this situation? What is it we're really trying to achieve? We generate ideas and options, but then the other steps are about making a great decision, executing that decision, and following through, because they're always spin-off ideas. That's a framework that I know, I understand, and I've got a lot of tools at each step of the way. I use the 6-step framework to guide my practice when it's appropriate. Another framework that we can use is a 360 assessment, where we use that to help the client to understand and to come to a conclusion about the kind of things they most need to work on. Even better, if we use that to drive things forward. There are all sorts of psychometric tests and assessments that end up in a filing cabinet. In a coaching context, they are used to identify the way forward. What do we need to focus on? What needs to be built if you're going to achieve the things you most want to achieve? I'm part of the Marshall Goldsmith stakeholder-centered coaching. I'm one of Marshall's executive coaches in the Asia-Pacific area. And one of the things that Marshall has designed is a fantastic process which takes the 360 and helps the leader to really become open and transparent in recruiting coaching from the people, their colleagues, the people that work for them and with them and that they report to. I also use, in my own practice, I've developed a framework which is about comfort zones and active learning. It helps me to identify when the person I'm working with is in a comfort zone. And in there, they are gradually losing self-confidence. They're not taking risks. They're not stretching themselves. They're not trying new things. And once we can work out why that is, what's blocking them, or what the trigger would be to help them to get out of that comfort zone and stretching themselves again, then I have a framework in mind of, well, then we need to be generating relevant ideas. We need them to make them their own. They need to actively experiment with those ideas in their own lives, in their own work situations. Find the ones that really work, but then we need to make sure that they become systematic. It needs to be built into become second nature. It becomes habitual that the good things, the better ways of doing things are the things they carry forward. Now, all of these I can share with you in documents that are attached to this, but more important is that you need to understand that none of these might be relevant to your client at the time. Listen to the things that are important to them. Listen to what they really need, why they really are looking for some help from a coach. And you'll need to perhaps go and find or create a framework that suits that. Let me share with you some examples from my experience. One was a senior management consultant who was helping the owners of two different businesses to agree on a merger. They all understood that it was a real win-win to bring these two businesses together. But he came to me, he was one of my clients, and this was the problem he wanted to talk about, is he could not understand why they had meeting after meeting after meeting, and they still didn't seem to be able to reach an agreement. Listening to him talking about the situation, I realized that there was something missing. They were on different wavelengths when it came to communication. So I drew on a framework about communication styles that I know, which identifies the difference between active listeners, people who are focused on people, people who are process focused and want to get all of the detail, and idea generators. Because it became clear to me that these two business owners were very strongly had two different communication styles, but even more important, my client had a third. So the three of them were in the same room talking about the same thing with the same goal, but they were just not connecting with each other. I shared this idea with my client. He got it straight away. He understood that this was what was really going on, so then we could move on to how he would use this insight to going forward. And he phoned me up a few days later, very excited, and said, look, it absolutely worked. Within half an hour, it was a done deal. Because we managed to get them absolutely connecting, and I realized that I was interfering with the whole process, and I had to shift into helping it rather than blocking it. Stephen Covey and Roger Merrill have got a brilliant framework for prioritization and time management. It's in a book called First Things First, where you simply identify two criteria. One is how important is something, and the other is how time pressing is it, how urgent is it, urgent or important. They've got a brilliant 2x2 matrix. You can break all of the activities into one of these 4 different zones and work out what needs to be changed. It's a framework that helps you to work out what's in balance, what's out of balance, and then to move on to solutions. Resistance to change. Again, I've got a 2x2 matrix, which tells me whether people are passive resistors, active resistors, explorers, or whether they are, on the face of it at least, committed to change. All of these templates are useful in different circumstances. The point is that I can't predict which ones will be useful. So coaches, think about frameworks. Gather as many as you can that are going to be relevant. When you're in a conversation with a client and they're talking about a particular thing, you may need to put a conversation on hold and say, look, can we come back and talk about this next time? I need to do a bit more thinking about this. Go and find a framework that'll help you to open up all of the areas that you need to explore to get a full understanding of the topic. So using frameworks in coaching. The more experience you've got, the longer you've been in the field, the more frameworks you have, the more likely you are to be able to respond to your client right then, right there. Because you've got these up your sleeve. They're handy. Hope this has been helpful. Over to you.